Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
9, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Zach Golden. Welcome to another, I don't know if this is a Starbase Weekly. I don't think we have a name, actually, now that I think about it.
Just KSC special stream.
Yeah, we'll call it the special, the RGV special stream. As y'all can see, today we are actually going to be going through some awesome images from KSC. So the normal Starbase show will actually be tomorrow, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. I have a little story about this because, you know, I've over the past few months been working on an episode for a very long time, and I'm always doing research and gathering images ahead of time before I ever start recording. And I've spent I want to say maybe a full week just looking for images of clean images of a lot of the pads at KSC, and it's very, very, very difficult to find. So with that said, Event Dudes, for those of you who are in the RGV server, have probably seen him around, went out there and took some incredible images. These are actually from a Cessna, I believe. So, you know, I think NSF and Greg Scott normally use a helicopter, so you get a different view. I don't think you're able to fly directly over these places with a helicopter. So I think the rules are a little bit different with a plane. So because of that, we actually ended up getting some very unique views that I don't think I've ever seen of a lot of these pads. So really, really great job from Event Dudes getting up there and getting these images for us, because, man, I feel like I've been waiting for these for a very, very long time. But before we get into this, I will introduce our guest for today. We have Ryan Hansen Space joining us. Ryan, how's it going?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's this is a really unique flyover. A lot of cool images, and there's a lot of cool things happening out at the Cape. So we got some glimpses into a couple of those, and especially with Artemis 2 coming up, we've got SLS and a lot of cool Starship stuff.
Yeah, for a long time I thought you were like avoiding coming on the shows with me because you're always not available the weeks I am. So nice to finally put that to rest.
Hey, that's how schedules are sometimes.
I think it's been like 8 months since you've been on the show with me, but yeah. We also have Alex joining us today. Alex, how's it going?
Morning, Zach. Morning, Ryan. And personally, I think it's Ryan's hiding from you because he's always afraid you're going to dump some more project material in his lap.
Yeah, I haven't lately actually. Ryan's got another project he's working on right now, which is actually going to probably turn out to be pretty cool. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, we also have Matt handling questions and donations for us and running the stream. So he will chime in when we get to those questions and donations. But yeah, like I said, big shout out to Event Dudes for getting up there and grabbing these images. Also, shout out to Greg Scott and NSF. Like they have been doing this for a very long time. Getting out there and really they're the only reasons we ever see images of KSC. So, shout out to them for that. And like I said, really excited to go through these images. And I figured we'd start off at 39B since that was in the thumbnail. But yeah, as you can see, this flyover, I think was on the 19th, which was a few days after SLS made it to the pad. And I think, could be wrong, I don't know what their normal procedure is, but I think he caught them, rolling the transporter away. I don't know if they just leave it there. Do you guys know if they leave it there during launch, or do they?
They leave it there when they're getting. I'll just hop in. They leave it there when they're they just put it at the pad, so they'll just kind of park it there in case they got to roll it back during hookups or anything like that. They'll probably roll it away a little bit more during the wet dress, but they'll definitely put it in its parking spot during launch.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's really cool. Just, I mean, even though this whole method of, vertical transport, the way they do it, in my opinion, seems slightly inefficient. It is still really cool. And the only reason I feel like it's inefficient is just because it requires this massive base right here. So, this is one of the reasons why people thought that it was impossible for SpaceX to build a flame trench at Starbase, was just because of the sheer magnitude of this pad. Just something like this. I think that this was everybody's image of a flame trench for a long time. And something like this would just never have fit at Starbase. So yeah, pretty cool to still see that though. This is really awesome just being able to even see inside the flame trench. I think that you have some really cool views from the backside too. Like I feel like these are just angles you just never see. Especially this amount of detail on the man, you know what? We might have to donate to Event Dudes to get another flyover in after the launch. That would be really cool to get before and afters of this.
Slight heat distortion.
It looks really good now. Like you really don't get to see that. They did release images after the last one, but they weren't very good. There was with a drone, right? Were they posted drone like a drone images like the day after, I think.
Believe that was, yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see what this looks like afterward. And this is the same one from Artemis 1, right? The what do you call the structure again?
Mobile launch platform, I think.
Yeah, this is the same one, right? They're refurbished it.
I believe so. Yeah, because I believe the next one is for the next variant. I think the 1B.
Oh, okay.
They'll use this for one more launch after this one.
And then do some retrofits on it.
No, this will get scrapped because this one can't handle the weight of Block 1B SLS because the EUS weighs too much. So they have to go to the Mobile Launcher 2 that they're currently building, which is being stacked by our good old friend, actually is done being stacked, but they'll have to switch to that ML once they go to Artemis 4.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if the flame trench can handle it. That's what I want to know. It's pretty cool to actually even be able to see the condition of this as well. Even though this is not the side that the exhaust really comes out of. I thought there was one looking up that side. There we go. Yeah, this is awesome. You know, I didn't know for the longest time that they had these deflectors on the side over here. I was going through a lot of the NASA archive, and then I was like, oh, that actually makes sense, because you always see the SRBs have such a wide expansion on the plume, so they need these deflectors just to keep everything in the trench. And I think they've had these since, I know for sure they had them with Space Shuttle. I don't think they had them before that. I think these were specifically when they started using the SRBs, they brought these out here. But that's pretty crazy. I would have just widened the trench.
Well, then you'd have to rebuild it for the crawler. It's that entire edge is designed to support the weight when they're moving the pad in above it.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, you need a wider crawler.
Yeah.
Well, what's another $5 billion, you know?
True. And my favorite, least utilized feature is how there are deflectors on rails, so they could technically easily swap them out.
These ones? Yeah.
On the ground inside the trench. The main deflector used to be for the.
Yeah, you can see the rails right there, where they would go off to the side.
Yeah, but the current one isn't.
No. Well, it's not. Yeah, they don't have a second one because launch cadence.
Yeah, it's very interesting though. I mean, it's a super historic pad, and like I said, just never getting these views is I don't think I've seen a nice backside view like this before. Like this specific image right here, I could have used probably about 3 months ago.
Yeah, I comment on this in Show and Tell, but it's interesting looking at some of these NASA pads because you've got so much, history just kind of right in front of you. You've got the rails for the flame deflector, and then you've got the rails for the rotating service structure for the space shuttle that are still kind of hidden in plain sight there, a little modified since then. But it is interesting, with the way that NASA tries to minimally modify the pads and reuse the existing stuff, that you do kind of get these marks that show a lot of the history that used to happen at these pads.
Yeah, like I said, going through their archive on their website, actually, I learned a lot. I didn't even realize some of the details on this, like because when you just see, space shuttle launches, or they don't really show you the pad that much. So it's actually going through and looking at that stuff. I think they even had like a bridge across here for that rail to go across.
Yeah,
Before.
they had it was like a curved bridge, and I believe there was a pillar actually right in the middle of the
Yeah. Just right in the middle of the plume.
Out which side they were exhausting up that was. Ryan would probably know if it was the main engines or the SRBs because they split it, I thought, on the shuttle.
Yeah, it was the main engines were out of this side, and then the SRBs are on this side. Yeah, which is actually like part of the big challenge when they did this, because you're putting twice the amount of exhaust through this side. I bet they probably wish they could have gone both directions. And I feel like they could have if they really wanted to, but that would have required them to actually build a Starship like flame deflector and not a space shuttle like flame deflector. But yeah, that's a whole nother story for a different day. But yeah, not a ton to talk about on 39B. I know that we're actually going to probably end up spending just a massive amount of time on 39A, but I did want to show this really quickly. Matter of fact, I think we'll go to do Roberts Road first. Save the best for last. Yeah, here we are, Roberts Road. You can see the Gigabay down here, which is a little bit further ahead than where we are at Starbase right now. At least on this side, I think they're kind of catching up. They just got to the third level on this side, which I think is where we are right now. And Starbase, they're about to finish off the third level. I think they probably got like another week before they finish it. But yeah, these guys are a little bit further ahead, so you can kind of see some of the differences. It's actually really weird, some of the differences they have going on here. And I may actually end up needing to pull up one of the images from this week from Starbase just to like point this out. But yeah, it's really weird. Specifically, they don't have these like temporary, what we think are like temporary floors going across, like basically structural supports going across. I'll just pull that up really quick. This is what we need. Yeah, so you could see they have, so this is the end of it's really hard to see where the end is. Right here, I think. This is the end of the workstation, and then so there's basically like a bridge going across to the other one. And so they're doing that pretty much all the way across on this. And they just started doing that on the other side as well too, which is really weird. And it seems like it's going to keep going. And I think it's probably just temporary. Obviously, you wouldn't be able to move a vehicle across this with that there. But, doing that all the way up to the top of the structure seems... it's very interesting, especially just considering the fact that they're not doing that here. So very curious differences between the two of them. For the most part, most other things are kind of the same, other than a few things on the bottom rows down here, a few extra sub-levels that they have. But for the most part, the structures are nearly identical. But yeah, very curious differences as far as those temporary supports that they have going on. I don't know if BJ ever said what his thoughts on why that's actually necessary. I mean, we did kind of think that maybe they needed to just keep the building, I don't know what's the right term, like square, I guess. You wouldn't want to get all the way up to the top and then try and span those beams across for the roof, and just to find out that, it's too wide or too close together. So you're like maintaining that spacing between them by putting those temporary ones in there. But like, I feel like that shouldn't be necessary.
If the amount, if you look around at Starbase in here, you can usually see all the targets that they're constantly shooting for building alignment. So it really is. I'd have to dive into some of the pictures to find them, but there's generally
literal target.
If you look, there's just a site marks. They're constantly shooting this with their total stations,
right?
Keep everything in alignment, because the bridge, the access bridges at the Cape, they just have those little scaffolding ones. It's why they're
very, very odd.
Yeah, because realistically, these could be built as three individual structures. Since they're going to move, the three sections are going to move independent of each other, even once a roof truss is in place. They'll just change dampen the frequencies that they can sort of oscillate in relation to each other at.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder if it has anything to do with like soil composition differences, maybe. Maybe in this location in Florida, it's maybe not as
Maybe.
susceptible to moving, but in Starbase, maybe there's a concern that, like you were saying, Zach, that maybe the left or the right is leaned out slightly. So when you get to the top, now you've got to close a 5-inch gap, and you're moving a whole half of a building to do that. So maybe something along those lines.
Yeah, to that, Ryan, that's kind of why they don't. If you watch their tightening crew, is this several sections behind, so that they removes that wiggle as they go, because that is a legitimate concern with any of these structures.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I can only imagine like the amount of processes that we wouldn't even really think about that they have to go through in order to like keep everything the way it needs to be.
So I can't remember on this one, and maybe you're actually looking for that right now, Zach, but I think isn't the side different than it is at Starbase? Because you've got the
This
Star
one,
Factory that butts up against the side of the building. So they're gonna, you know, we think they're gonna do the side loading into those different cells. I think the side of this building's a little different, is it not?
This
um,
section is
yeah, go.
removable.
Okay,
Uh,
these ones.
yeah, right. Yeah. Before they poured this slab, the column that center was on it's on its own sort of foot block that really wasn't tied directly to the minimally tied to the underlying pile cap.
Okay. I suppose you can see that too, even with the walkways that they've actually poured concrete on already. I think that's maybe another difference. Have they started doing that at Starbase yet? Pouring the concrete on?
Not
No,
Okay.
no, they haven't even. They've done at Starbase. They've done the. I mean, we might as well just look at it. Um, so they've like put some of the studs in. Um, right here across. I think these are what they like the rebar ties into. Um, and actually, you can even still see that here on the levels that where they haven't actually poured the concrete yet. Down here, yeah, you can see all the rebar in there. Yeah, they're definitely further ahead for sure down here. And it's weird that it's weird. It's interesting that they haven't started any of the concrete at Starbase at all, but I think it may just be like a lack of space. They have this area right here is pretty much empty, but at Starbase this is like kind of part of their offloading area, I think, still. So they don't really want to be having things get in the way of moving all of that steel through there. So
I personally think it's once Starbase is on the fourth level, is when they're going to start doing the floors. There's a lag between when they're doing it, just because they're constantly adjusting trying to keep the building in alignment and true. And once they lock it in with the floors, you start losing that ability.
right, that makes sense.
So presumably from this angle, the eventual factory here would butt up against the side of the building here. So that'll be interesting if they build more than one gigabay in Florida. I guess where it would be positioned and how it would interface with a future factory.
Yeah, I could see that. I think it would be. Just trying to see if I get a wide view that I can see the whole lot at one time, but I don't think there is one. This is still pretty good though. Yeah, I mean, I think that factory would end up butting right up against it, and then obviously taking up that entire lot back there. Um, and then at least having one more phase of this building. That would be crazy if they end up doing two more phases of it. I mean, I feel like you could fit that, but almost.
Guess the question would be whether or not they add on to the fronts of the gigabay, or if they have an open space and then build one mirrored kind of facing this one. So you would have
Mhm.
like all four doors open up kind of to an inside little
Yeah.
courtyard.
That probably actually would make sense because they don't have the big doors on this side, right?
That's where the big doors are.
Oh, they are on this side. Okay.
Yeah. And the flip side is if they're building around a 24 bay gigabay to Star Factory, it almost indicates their manufacturing plans is that the stacking step is going to considerably drop in complexity as it currently.
What makes you say that?
Well, if you have 6 stacking stations, right, and that size of factory, the less time you have the stations occupied. So if you have the components more finished when they come in, it's more stack and go, sort of like Lego sub-assemblies.
Yeah.
Rather than bespoke, yeah, we stack it, then we move it off, and now we're doing all the internals. Because the nice thing with 18 is looking in is it seemed that the sort of quad barrels are where everything's in like one group. They're trying not to span as much between.
Right. But one of the interesting things that we kind of talked about during the show and tell, which I've been thinking about since then, I'm kind of curious your guys' thoughts on the whole transporting, full vehicles down here. To me, that doesn't make sense because, like right now, I don't think Starbase has the ability to. Well, I suppose maybe they do, like to produce enough vehicles to be able to launch from both be able to continuously launch from both locations right now. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of need those. They only have 2 stacking stations. They have one for the booster and one for the ship currently until that building's finished. So, in my opinion, it kind of like the Star Factory is ready for theoretically 48 workstations in 2 gigabays, right? Like, so theoretically they should be able to put out enough ring sections for this building, but they don't have enough stacking space between the 2 megabays to be sending vehicles to both locations, in my opinion. I feel like it would make more sense to produce ring sections and send them down here while they're building the Star Factory instead of sending full vehicles. Like, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on that.
I think that initially it probably makes sense to send full vehicles maybe for the first 2 or 3 flights to build them at Starbase and send them here. But in order to do that, there is going to be processing involved with getting the vehicles from Starbase to Florida. They're not just going to be ready to fly, put them on a transport vehicle and send them over and launch them immediately. They're going to have to go through processing. If you can imagine trying to, whether they ship them vertically or horizontally, there's going to be a different number of steps involved with getting them flight ready after any modifications needed to transport them horizontally. So I think that that's maybe where the priority of the Gigabay right now sits, is that they need space to process a vehicle once it's sent here, especially if they catch boosters in Florida initially, they're going to also need a place to service them after that. Now,
Right.
eventually, ring sections, sending them over from Starbase, it depends on maybe the status of the factory. Now, obviously, they haven't started on a factory yet, so it's going to be a bit before it's constructed, let alone usable. But there may be some overlap where there's a transition point between whether it makes sense to send a full vehicle, maybe ring sections, or maybe just produce everything on site.
Yeah, I guess the one downside to sending ring sections is that's a lot of transports up and down the Highway 4. I don't know how many ring sections there are total between the 2 vehicles, but yeah, you're turning 2 trips into like 12, if not more.
When 39 A's EIS comes out, that'll shed a lot of light on it. since the first 37, that I forgot what the number it was. I think they expect only 40. I want to say it's 40 barge trips from Boca to.
That's it.
Yeah, they lay out for the environmental and pollution aspects in the reports. So it's a prominent section.
Interesting.
Yeah.
For a ship and a booster combined, you're talking 17 separate ring sections. You know, if the nose cone is separated from the payload bay and everything like that. My whole thing is, why send ring sections when you can send a full vehicle? And not only that, I guess the other side of that is, well, if you send ring sections to KSC, you need a place then to test the vehicle you're also assembling there, and they don't have any of those facilities yet at KSC. They have everything at Starbase.
That definitely is a good point. On that note, I wonder if we'll end up seeing a ship testing location at some point down here. Actually need crowd testing and stuff for boosters as well too, if you end up doing that. I wonder what pad they would do that on if they did it.
From looking at like 37s, it looks like they're going to have if they don't build it looks like it'll just be an adapter for one of the OLMs.
Okay.
I think there was an idea floated too, where if there was like a catch-only tower, that they could maybe put like a ship stand underneath it, and that would, primarily be like where they would static fire any ships that were built here in Florida.
Yeah, because
you just put a terrible image in my head, like the Star Stool thing.
My issue with an adapter is if you want, and I think that would only work for a short amount of time, because if they truly want the flight rate that they want, they cannot use an adapter on one of those pads. That won't work for the flight rate that they want to hit. You would literally you need a dedicated test area.
I completely agree, and the Star Stool is kind of what I see them doing, as horrible as it seems.
And sorry, I was looking in here. I was trying to see if there was any signs that they were doing some groundwork for that factory, but I thought I saw something back there, but it doesn't look like. I think this is all just plumbing, probably for the Gigabay. You have to put bathrooms on every single floor. Can you imagine having to go all the way down to the bottom floor just to use the restroom in an emergency?
Well, that's why they already have porta potties all over
the
structure.
all over the place. I guess I'll move us over to the other part of the Roberts Road facility, where we can see the tower sections are mostly complete. They're still working on a lot of the pipe work in here on the lower sections. These guys get to take their sweet time with this because, as we'll see with 37, they're a bit of a ways out from actually needing this stuff right now. So I guess they're not sitting here quite as long as the previous set of tower sections sat here, but yeah, they're moving along though. Looks like they got their new QD arm. Is this the old version?
So this is the new version. This is for 39A. So there's a mix here that's going to be a common theme as we look at these photos from this region. There's a mix of parts for 39A and 37, kind of all here.
Right. So we have launch deck sections for 37. That's interesting that they're fully assembling these on the ground.
They lifted in quarters like this, I thought.
You're
right.
An eighth.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But I mean, if you got a crane that can do it, might as well.
Right.
Doing it underneath this roof though would be weird. So that's for 37. This is for 39.
Those
37.
tents, yeah, are on rails so they can slide in.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
they built the mount under those because it can rain a lot more at the Cape than say at Starbase. So like during the summer months, what they did is if they didn't need to lift anything big, they would just close those tents basically over the mount and be
Yeah.
able to work under a roof basically.
I've literally
That-
never noticed that. I'm always so busy like trying to. I've thought about like, oh, maybe I should start making episodes about KSC. I'm like, I do not have time. There's just like too much happening at Starbase to even attempt to do that.
So that's another reason why it's highly unlikely that they would assemble the next launch mount for Starbase inside the hangar, because they need the crane space to be able to lift all those components. So
Which hangar?
the hangar in Sanchez. I think for a long time it was speculated that that's where they might build the launch mount for pad 2, and then they ended up building it outside. But that's
Right.
strong evidence that they want to have space for cranes to be able to lift the heavy weldment pieces together outside. So
Which
they
is weird though, because they have a bridge crane in that ground fabrication building.
Could it lift those sub assemblies?
I think it might be a height issue as well, because if you factor in the lower beam area and then the actual structure on top, you've got some big pieces that it gets pretty high in there.
Yeah, true.
Do they have 2 sets of those upper level supports? It's the only one in the
These?
Yeah, I thought they only went in the corners, but were they supporting the midpoint as well? Because that seems anyway.
There might be putting 2 in each corner or something like that.
They might have done the mid seam and then maybe the inner radius corner.
Yeah, so they doubled up the support. Because I thought at Boca they only did the inner corners, but
Yeah, so we are waiting for basically 2 more launch mounts to start appearing somewhere. Guessing those are probably literally being welded right now somewhere in a fabrication shop. The question will be whether or not the first one comes here or ends up in Starbase. So I think technically it's hard to tell whether 37 or is more ahead of Starbase or not. Or sorry, Pad 1, Pad A. I think we'll get to that here in a second. I'll come back to that thought. I don't know if was there anything else at Roberts Road for us to touch on, or maybe we could just go over there right now.
There's just various pieces laying around the chopstick area for either pad and whatnot. So they've got a lot of work still to do on some of those components.
I was looking for a view from that side. There's so many images. Event Dudes took 1,059 images. So I had to like organize these. I was just going to put them all in one folder, but there was just so many that I was like, we're not going to be able to actually find anything if I don't organize these. But yeah, so these you were talking about down here.
Yeah, there's various frames and whatnot that'll end up being put on the arms, and of course they've got a little bit of a catch-up work to go to on the arms, since they're modifying the ones at Starbase as well as 39 to add in some of the new structural tubes and whatnot. So
Right.
they've got a little bit of work to do. And yeah, there's just pieces down here. I think down by the trailers here and at the bottom of the frame, there's some of the linkages, parallel linkages for the booster quick disconnects. So there's various pieces for different booster quick disconnects as well under the tents and between 37 and 39.
It would be really cool to walk through this yard.
and
I'm not sure how they manage all the inventory and keep track of what goes where. Somebody must be walking around with a Sharpie writing on it where this stuff goes.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be here for a long time because I am a firm believer that within the next 2 years we'll hear of another launch site, probably overseas somewhere. And I imagine this is like you just order yourself a launch mount and they're like, yeah, we already got one ready. We'll send it down to you. You'll have a launch site finished in 18 months. Yeah.
It's like 6.
Yeah, I
it's
think
like IKEA sets down here.
I'm pretty sure there'll be a Vandy will get one in the next announced in the next year.
That would be pretty awesome.
I think Space Force has a request out to the launch providers because they want to bring on a new heavy launch site there.
I guess we already know what that one's going to be.
Yeah.
Competition between Blue Origin and SpaceX on that one for sure. Cool. I will go ahead and move us over to 37 really quick since we were kind of talking about that. But first, I will let Matt see if we have any questions or donations before I move us away from here.
We sure do. First donation is $20 from Methane Man saying, I'll be the first to start the goal. Then we've got $10 from Josh Berkey saying, pictures are amazing. Thank you so much. More of these updates in the future, please. And we've got another 20 from Yazada saying, here's my contribution. We've got $10 from James Wilson saying, choo choo. And we got another 20 from Todd Bernal, our very own Todd, Mr. Butter, saying, gas for Starbase or KSC, I'm always in.
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, it would be really interesting to kind of try and make this a regular thing, at least like maybe once a month or something like that. But it is fairly expensive, I imagine. I don't know how this compares to flying over Starbase as far as cost goes, but yeah, donations are much appreciated. And I don't know, I haven't talked to Mauricio about this, but maybe we'll see whether or not there's plans of trying to make this a regular thing or not. But if so, y'all's donations will definitely be much needed. So thank you all for that. And sorry I cut you off when you were about to get to the questions.
No, you're fine. And just to update you on that, we are talking about it, but nothing is confirmed just yet. So we'll go ahead with the questions. So Kal-El in the chat, Mr. Superman, is asking, how do starships and this compare in weight? And he is talking about the SLS.
In weight? Are we talking about the...
Yeah, I think
like
he's wondering like how they what they weigh differently.
The pad infrastructure?
No, the ship itself.
Oh, I do not know that. Is there a listed dry mass for SLS?
Oh, I gotta remember because the dry mass includes the fueled solid rocket boosters.
Yeah, it's not quite a apples to apples comparison. On Wikipedia, I see it's what is that? 2,610 kilograms, 610,000 kilograms.
Interesting.
So a little misleading.
I thought he was asking about the weight of the pad infrastructure, which I actually did have an answer for, but I'm going to keep it to myself now.
All right, I'll go ahead on to the next one. So Chang58 asks, is the temporary cross beams at Boca because the tower cranes are tied to the outside walls, and at Florida the tower cranes are tied to the outside and center walls?
Well, these tower cranes actually are, if I'm looking at a better angle, it looks like they are directly up against okay, they're in the middle of the aisles. I think they're, okay, the difference, I think these are pushed out a little bit. They're like in the transfer aisle instead of in the other one that's right here at Starbase, basically. So it's like pushed out a little bit further, but I don't know why that would make a difference.
It doesn't look like they're connected to the center, I think, like what the question was maybe asking.
Oh, like if the tower cranes are actually connected to these? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think they were thinking that at Boca it's just tied to one wall, and Florida would be tied to the outside and the inside. I think that was their thinking.
Oh, yeah, I think they're both the supports are basically the same. there's just a few extra components on this one because it's pushed out a little bit further. So like these two beams right here seem to be the main difference in that support. Oh, and the one that goes across right here. I'm sorry, maybe I should be looking at that from a different angle.
I think you're right, though. They just look different just because of the slightly different relation to where they are.
Right.
All right, we'll go on to the next one. So Canan Copeland asks, if they send rings to Roberts Road, how would they cryo and qualify them? I suppose you could do all that on the pad for booster, but not ship. Maybe a stool adapter like S37 or 38?
Yeah, honestly, I'm regretting even bringing up that idea of shipping them in ring sections just because of the idea of that ring adapter. But yeah, I guess I think that probably came in before we actually touched on that one. But yeah, that is probably the main point of the main thing that would prevent them from doing something like that is the lack of testing infrastructure down here for pre-flight testing.
Which
Yeah,
it may be something that they do initially, where maybe they do whip together an adapter, and maybe for 39A they are able to test the booster, do cryo, static fire, and then throw on the adapter, do the ship, both a cryo and a static fire. But ultimately you don't really want to have adapters that you have to place and remove because that's really inefficient. So once the infrastructure develops enough, maybe there is a dedicated place where they can do dedicated ship testing, because booster's no problem, but ship is more of the question.
and that's all the questions we have at the moment.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I will go ahead and move us over to 37. We were a little bit confused on this one if we were able to show it or not, but I think we've decided that we are able to, or at least we think we are, we hope. But yeah, this is pad 37, which, as y'all know, SpaceX purchased or took over from, I don't know if they purchased it directly from ULA, more like took over the lease, I guess. And yeah, demolished the pad that was here for Delta 4. Was that the one that was here?
The Heavy, I think, yeah.
Yeah, Delta 4 Heavy. Yeah, okay. So they took that over from ULA, demolished all of that. Literally the only thing that's left over from that original, everything that was here is the bunker and I think the 2 retention ponds, and that's everything else is new.
Sphere.
And what was that?
I think the Sphere made it so far.
Oh, I was actually wondering if this was new or if that was they kept that. I'm guessing that's probably for methane. But just to preface all this, I almost wish that we started at 39A before coming here, because in my opinion, this is we'll be able to see like a difference between what they're doing in those 2 spots. But I think this is probably, if I was a GSE engineer, or this would be my favorite pad out of all of them. This is the only one where they have the space to do whatever they want and a clean slate. So at 39A, they're to some degree working around existing infrastructure. Like the pad's huge, so it's not like anything Falcon 9 related was actually in the way of anything. But I'm sure that if that flame trench for Falcon 9 was not there, the pad would look very different. And so I think with this one, we'll be able to see like what their ideal pad would look like. This, in my opinion, this is probably going to turn out to be my favorite. I have a feeling.
Yeah. It's essentially 39 was considered brownfield, where you're working around infrastructure and existing, and this is as close to pure greenfield as they're going to get.
Yeah. And do we know? Man, I don't know if I have the map for the plans for 37, and I'm pretty sure they changed anyways. Do we know where the location for each pad is supposed to be?
That's changed. Like that's the large center retention pond, which may or may not just be a construction water supply, is not listed in the current plans.
Yeah,
Okay.
Zach, if you're curious about where the first, I guess, tower and mount are going to go, it's going to be kind of, well, right here to the left of the crane, front down here at the bottom. Yeah, right where they're doing I think they're doing the soil mixing right now, or the piles, right here in the front. That's going to be where the tower is going to go, on the gray pad where they're at.
Is this the trench right here?
So the trench is actually going to be between there and then the white vertical. I'm not sure exactly what piece of equipment those are, but that's going to be the tower, and the trench will be on that side of the tower.
I'm gonna potentially disagree with you. The leader mounted CFA drill can generally drill deeper than this BG 39 or 40 Bauer rig. So I just find that kind of curious that they're doing in potentially two different.
Three different.
Yeah,
so this one is
it's a CFA drill. You can see a cage being held up by the helper crane. Yeah.
This is the bigger one than what we have over here, right?
Yeah. Malcolm refers to those as I think they're mega rigs drills. They usually spec those when you're going down over 50 meters. So yeah, I'm not sure why.
The location for this is weird, because you have this right here. So I mean, that would almost imply that they're building tank farm infrastructure over here. But then the deep soil mixing is over the deep soil mixing
route plant.
Yeah, plant is over here. And where was the
batters are by the flatbed on the upper right side of that work. Yeah, right there is a mixing meters.
Okay. So they may just be here right now, but they're not actually going to be used there.
Yeah, this is just their staging location because they can pump that grout pretty much anywhere on the site from that mix plant. And they're still filling in the old retention pond that was here.
Right. Okay. So this was a retention pond.
Yes.
And this.
I think that might be the new pond. Or is this a backfilling one as well? They're reconfiguring one or two and removing two. At least that was in the most recent submittals I've been able to track down. Thank you, event dudes. Yeah, if they're not, then I fully agree with Ryan's assessment of that. There's definitely drilling a tower base there,
right here.
The trench location. Yeah, the potentially deeper piles. That's the only reason I hesitant to definitively say it's going to go here.
So really quickly, Ryan, you were saying if the tower's here, are you thinking trench this direction?
Yeah, if I have my orientations right, yeah, the trenches always are going to be pointed toward the water based on the renderings that we've seen of 37. So in this case, the water is actually to the top left, is where the beach would be. So the trench would be kind of angled out toward the water.
I would want to push it away from this. Like, why are they so close to the edge?
It's probably a lot further than it looks from this angle. The site's huge.
Probably true.
And yeah.
If I was them, I would get rid of this.
They might be moving it.
Oh yeah, it's not on a found. It's they probably did move it here, right? Was this its original location?
I think it's his original, but they can move it. I'm just curious why they're assembling the 13K so soon.
I think they just didn't have anywhere to put it.
Well,
Like because it was over on, it moved from 39A over to here, and I think that maybe they just didn't have anywhere to put it.
but they also brought in the additional boom pieces to make the power boom configuration.
Right. They didn't do power boom last time, did they?
Nope. I think they need it for reaching, for the more stability when they're stacking the top of the tower, more so than the OLM.
Right. And they'll probably theoretically build out that some of those sections a little bit more than they have in the past.
Yeah, I think BJ or one of our other crane experts would be able to say how much more mass that this one could lift at that height.
Yeah, the heaviest section is, I think, the fifth. It's either the fourth or the fifth, where all of the manifolds and whatnot, like where the pipes come up to the top of the tower and then go over to the QD arm. There's a ton of plumbing up on that level, hydraulics and all that stuff. So it would be interesting to see if they actually end up. What am I doing? We just look at it. Oh boy. Let's see if I can find it. Right here. That was quick. Yeah, this is the heavy one. Well, if they build out all of the plumbing inside of here first, then this would be the heavy one. So it'll be interesting to see if they end up doing that, just to have it slightly more completed, less work to do on pad. But I mean, the one advantage with 37 compared to pretty much everywhere else is the fact that there's no active launch site on here. So like they can go 24/7, no interruptions. They're never having to move equipment out of the way or anything. I guess they don't necessarily move equipment out of the way at 39A, but they do have to, obviously shut down during launches. I think probably for the entire day. I don't know if I wonder, we don't know that actually, do we? I wonder if they just literally shut down work for the entire day every time there's a launch.
At
What
least
is the
full
current
shift.
cadence out of 39A right now? Is it like every once a week?
They hardly use it anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
So most of them are out of 40 and Vandenberg?
Yep.
So they had said that they were going to scale back single stick Falcon 9 from 39 so that they could prioritize like the Starship construction. And I believe they've configured it for Falcon Heavy primarily for throughout the year. And so we'll see single stick Falcon 9s go out of 40 for I think at least the first half of this year. It depends on how many Falcon Heavies that they get to and when the schedules are.
Well, that's really smart and convenient. I guess that completely throws off what I was saying as far as them being able to move faster here. I guess it's actually kind of the same. Um, I mean, we can just move over there right now, actually, to do it.
Yeah.
Unless there's
Actually,
any questions for 30.
before we jump over, I just wanted to say, Alex, you had me questioning my orientation, so I went and I looked at some images, and I'm now really confused at what's going on and where, because it looks like I'm actually 180 degrees off of what I was thinking. And according to I guess the renderings from SpaceX on what
Can you send it to me?
37 is supposed to look like, it kind of looks like it's actually supposed like there's not going to be any of the Starship launch pads on this side that's closest to us, that it's all on the opposite side. So I'm a little confused now.
Really?
Yeah, it's either that or they rotated everything 90 degrees anti-clockwise, because it makes zero sense.
So you're saying that they're all supposed to be over here?
So actually, if you take a line and you draw it from the blockhouse out to basically straight to the left, it looks like everything Starship related was supposed to be on the far side. That this side was going to be where the ponds were and maybe some of the tank farm stuff. But it's interesting because it looks like it's flipped compared to that. But so I'm not sure what's going on here.
Right. Yeah, no, it's like I'm clueless, and nothing what they're drilling seems to correspond to this.
Yeah, what?
So I just sent you another image too, Zach, but in this image here, you can actually see where the old launch pad was for Delta 4. It's the rise, there's like a pad of grass that's higher, yeah, on the right side there. And if you go back to the SpaceX rendering, you can see that still in the image down here on the bottom right-hand corner. So you can kind of,
Wait,
yeah, so if you're on the
this
right
is
side there, and then you go back
here?
here, nope, a little bit further down is like the
Oh,
little,
this.
yeah, that, yep. So it's it's weird. I'm not really sure what's going on with the orientation of everything.
You know what's funny about this render? Um, the lack of a tank farm and the even pretending that there would be this much grass over here. Like that, there's no way that tank farm's going to be absolutely massive.
Yeah, they have the little tiny ones right next to the pad, but yeah, they don't look big
I
enough.
think these are the
Really,
water farms.
yeah, that literally looks
Yeah.
like just a water farm compared to yeah, what we've seen elsewhere. So yeah, it's a little weird. I'm not sure what to believe now.
Yeah, and I think their EIS renders basically the whole left side is filled with GSE equipment.
Over here.
Yeah, because the only thing that's not wouldn't be in this, at least in the current, as ASU, would be on the bottom left, off, not quite on the pad grounds, but yeah,
Oh, over here.
yeah, right around there.
Okay. That would be right here.
I think that's below the bunker.
Yeah, it'd be the right corner. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're that. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, right here.
yeah, and then when we get to 39, to what you were saying, Zach, about
The
the
tank
lack
farm.
of tanks. Yeah.
Yeah. We might as well move over there unless we have questions from.
We don't have any questions specific to this area. We've got some to hold for later. But we do want to say thank you to Bob Fillmore for his Canadian $27.99 super chat. And then we had Car Audio Guy re-upping his membership for the 27th month for RGV Early Access, saying absolutely amazing work from Event Dudes. And then we had one last super chat for $2 from Ecliptic Pain, saying, I'm broke, sorry I can't contribute more. Trust me, you don't have to worry about that. We appreciate literally everything from you guys. Even if all you can do is like the stream and share it with your friends, we greatly appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, up to this point, I would say these images have been mostly things that you can capture normally. But what we're about to get into is absolutely ridiculous. These are images, like I said, that I've been waiting on for a very long time. These, in my opinion, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm not even going to try and do comparisons or look for anything better. I think these are the single best images that in existence for 39A. This is absolutely amazing. Like, first and foremost, since Ryan mentioned the Falcon Heavy operations or conversion, I don't think we've ever seen this from above like this. Absolutely incredible. Like I was literally wondering the other day what their refurbishment schedule looks like for this, like how often they end up actually needing to make repairs and whatnot. So it actually would be pretty cool to have, like, you know, weekly or monthly flyovers down here just to actually be able to see some of the refurb operations that go on down here, because we really never hear about that. Like, we don't hear about, you know, when pads are down for maintenance, we just never hear about it. So it would be cool to actually be able to see like historical comparisons of what goes into enabling them to launch as frequently as they do. But yeah, this is just pretty amazing being able to see this. You can actually see all the are these where's the cuties right here? Actually, I'm not sure.
I believe there's one of them right kind of in the front. They're offset. slightly.
Is there a top-down one? Let me see. It's close. Wow. Yeah, I guess they do have some maintenance going on. So these are just the hold downs, right? Where are these? Oh, this is not Falcon Heavy configuration, right?
So right now, I believe it's in single stick configuration because they would be, I think, moving some of these around. You can see there's brackets, basically left
Right
of your
here.
mount. Yeah, right there. I think they maybe move one over there, and use it in that position when they're to hold the outer core on that side, or not the outer core, but the outer stick.
Wow. This thing is pretty cool.
Which is crazy because, like you were saying, we don't really see this very often, so it's kind of hard to know, like, general
Yeah.
knowledge how some of this works.
Yeah, I think I would have to I don't even know if you can find images of just this component online. Let's try. Falcon Heavy erector. What is it? What do they call it?
Be the transporter erector.
That's not what they call it. Strongback. See what I mean? You could literally spend an entire day trying to find find this stuff and fail. All right, Ryan. You're right.
One to zero.
Yeah, okay. So I can see where they so you have three, and there's one on the side right here. So
So I think the one that's angled is actually where the
these get pushed
QD
out.
itself. So yeah, so those two that are in the middle, I guess, come out to the side. So the outer two are held with 3, and the middle one, I guess, is held with only 2. And then there is one that kind of comes off at an angle, I think, to the right of your cursor between some of the other ones. It's really hard to see, but yeah, right below your cursor, there's one that's kind of at an angle. I think one of the other camera angles showed it a little bit clearer, but I think that's maybe one of the umbilical connections.
Here.
Yeah, right in there.
And the rest of them are on the Strongback. That's pretty cool. One thing that we have never seen, and we still won't, with this being here, is the actual flame bucket that they have down there. And because you can't see inside of this at all, because they put these covers over the trench for some reason. I don't know why they did that, actually.
It's probably a shockwave mitigation on the vehicle.
Oh, to stop it from bouncing out of the trench.
Yeah, bouncing
Yeah.
up and then along the side of the rocket.
Similar to what they did at Massey's.
Which is interesting because they clearly don't care about that with their new launch pad design. That was probably my favorite thing about their launch pad design is that they just clearly do not care about sound. Like they do have there is suppression built in naturally to their system, but that's not its purpose at all. Like I'm feeling if they could do the cooling without actually suppressing sound, they probably would.
Yeah, it's just ways. That was probably their largest learning from the pancake.
Right. Mm-hmm. The just basically protecting the pad and not necessarily the vehicle.
Yeah, it's let's create the worst case scenario and challenge all previous assumptions of sound suppression.
Right. Elsewhere on the pad, I'm kind of like looking at the auxiliary stuff before I take us over to the Starship pad. I think we can see this is. Do they have a different? Is there another one of these for Falcon Heavy, or they have? Okay, there's only one building. For some reason, I thought there was two down here. How do they? Where do they? Can you put Falcon Heavy inside of that?
I would assume so. Yeah, we've seen images of Falcon Heavy before launch while it's still horizontal, and presumably from inside this building.
How? There must be a bigger door on the other side. No, if there's any views showing that side. Probably not. If I run into one, I'll pull it up, but I'm not gonna waste our time searching for it. Yeah, there's also a lot of like other interesting things just related to their launch pad that's I've always had questions on. They have so many like high pressure gas cylinders and stuff down here. I would love to like a tour of this place one day just to see all of the GSE systems that are down here that you just never actually get to hear about their function.
Wonder how much of that's current, or if it's some that's just holdovers that they never demoed.
I think there's definitely some of that. I don't know on the GSE side if that's the case though.
Yeah, they've done. I mean, what was the one they were trying to build here a few years back? The precursor Starship.
Right. The one that they had down here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We were
Basically.
just basically looking at it. We were literally just looking at where it was. What could have been.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, 39A is awesome because with it being so large, like at Starbase, they kind of have to ship things. They have to be really careful when things are shipped because they only have so much space to put everything that, you can't just fill Sanchez up with all of the, all of these huge components. So they need to basically ship out within a week of being installed, if not days. And so down here, they can basically have the entire launch pad, like your entire tank farm, just and the launch mount, all the other components for it, just sitting out here waiting. There's just so much, like a ridiculous amount of storage space down here. But I'll go ahead and take us over to what we really want to see. Should we start with the tank farm or the launch mount?
Launch mount. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll just shout out a couple of donations while you're doing that real quick. We had, I want to say thank you to John DeVries for joining RGV Flight Supporter, and a 20-pound super chat, or I'm sorry, 20 euro super chat from Not Tom B saying, oh, he didn't say anything. So thank you for your donations, guys. We appreciate it. And back to you, Zach.
Okay. Yeah, here we are. This is really awesome because, like I said, we just don't get to see this. But yeah, they are moving right along, and you can see a lot of similarities, but also some interesting differences here. But I guess we'll just start with the actual launch mount itself. It looks like getting close to installing the actual QDs. They have all the hold down arms, I think, sitting down here somewhere.
Yeah, they're scattered about. I think there's some off to the left. There's three of them right there. There's one down here to the bottom left next to the dog houses. Yeah. But I think they've been captured, dropping a few more of them down. I think some of the live streams have got some more arms going in more recently. So they're definitely progressing on kind of a lot of different aspects of the mount right now.
Right. Yeah, and there is one major difference between this launch mount and the one for Pad 2. So I guess if I just really quickly probably show this. I'll use an image from last week since we're going to do the show tomorrow. So this tower is slightly taller than the other one, and that's because of, where can we actually see it at? It's very difficult to actually see this. I think is it just the base that's taller? I'm pretty sure it's
Yeah,
just the base. Yeah. So
yeah. The
the
base is
base,
about a meter and a half taller. Yeah.
yeah, like I think it's this line right here, maybe. Yes, maybe a side angle like that. Stupid carriages in the way. But yeah, so this is basically like Brian was saying, a meter and a half taller.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact measurement. I think, back when we were comparing the heights of the towers based on the documentation, that it kind of came out to be roughly like a meter and a half in difference. And of course, it depends on where they're measuring from and whatnot. But ultimately, the base of this tower is definitely taller than the base of Pad One at Starbase. So, but the tower itself, dimensionally, it's constructed a little bit differently from the way they've partitioned the sections, but it is still the same kind of unit. So what's changed basically between the pads is just the base of the tower, which forces the overall tower to be a little bit taller.
Yeah, and this kind of gets into something that Elon said during his tour with the Everyday Astronaut, that this tower was going to be taller, and then uh, like we all knew that was not going to happen. But I think he kind of just like misspoke in a way, because what really makes it taller, with air quotes, is the height of the hold down clamps. The so from the ground to the position where the booster rests on the hold down clamps has I actually don't know how much it shrank. I want to say it's like 2 to 3 meters. It's up to 5 meters. Hold on. Ryan, 16 meters to the
It
engines, right?
was, yeah, it was 16 meters from the pancake to where the engine exits were, roughly in that range.
Right. Okay. So 1 to 5 meters doesn't sound ridiculous. It's probably somewhere within that 1 to 5 meters. The launch mount is shorter than the original one, and so by having the hold down clamps closer to the ground, it technically makes the tower taller. And so um, that is one of the things that this basically enabled them to not have to make the tower taller, and it also is kind of a cheat code in some ways, because it helped them out down here as well too. So, oops, wrong one. And this is actually something that that they're going to have to do for Pad One, and I think I've talked about this. Sorry, I keep grabbing the wrong image. I've talked about this before, and I think it was maybe like 2 weeks ago. I know Alex and I have mentioned it multiple times, predicting what they were going to do in order to account for the fact that these towers are shorter. So, like Ryan was saying, this tower is the same as Pad 1's tower, Pad A's tower, which is slightly shorter. So, in order to compensate for the tower being shorter, they also needed to lower the top of the launch mount.
It's
So,
basically like a bunch of constraints, because if you think about the tower being consistent, where the QD arm is located on the tower kind of dictates, the height of where the launch mount needs to be, because you're essentially trying to interface with the ship exactly where you want to, and that changes based on the height of the booster, and then the height of the booster changes where the actual booster needs to rest, which is where the launch mount needs to be. So they kind of have to look at it in terms of, okay, where does the ship need to be, and then work backwards from there, which in this case, yeah, because the tower base is a little bit shorter by about a meter and a half, the launch mount itself actually has to be pushed down into the ground by about a meter and a half to make sure that that constraint chain is still consistent between all the towers and all the vehicles.
Yep. So because of that, this is slightly deeper, and I believe the trench itself is slightly longer as well too, in order to account for that extra depth, because they probably have the same angle on the actual slope of the ramp coming out. So it's probably slightly longer. And then what we can actually see, which is pretty cool. Which angle do I need? Once again, there's just so many images.
And while Zach is finding an image, I will mention that I believe Crane Man on a previous episode had asked this question, I think maybe toward the end of kind of what would happen. And I think my prediction at the time was that they were going to, sink it down into the ground a little bit. And this is the first time we're actually getting confirmation of that actually happening. And we'll look at it here. I'll let you take over, Zach.
Yeah, we can actually. So this is. How do I show this? So you can actually see right here where what the original wall, or not the original wall, but I guess you call this the Starbase wall, because this is where this line right here is where the Starbase wall ends, because it's higher up out of the ground. Like this right here in Starbase sits way up here. So because it's pushed down, they needed to add this extra level onto here to account for that. And so that you can actually see this is the extra length of the trench right here. Basically, 2 times this distance is the increase in length of the actual trench itself, in order to make that work, which is actually pretty cool. I mean, it's nice that it's that simple for them to make that kind of adjustment. It also kind of forced them to make some changes with the bunker as well. And I can't remember, Ryan, what did we figure out on this one?
Yeah, so we determined that the bottom level is actually a little bit shorter, because obviously they've sank the entire structure down. That means that I forget what we're calling this. Is this like the GSC bunker
GSC
or whatever?
bunker. Yeah.
Since
Yeah.
they've lowered everything down. This has to also move with the launch mount. So it has to sit flush with the top. So it looks as though the top level is consistent with Starbase. It looks like the second level is fairly consistent. I don't think it moved at all, but the bottom level for sure is shorter, to account for the higher ground level in relation to the top of the launch mount. So it's a bit shorter, near the base there.
I imagine losing 1.5 meters of overhead space probably sucked.
I think they tried to split the difference a little bit because we spent a while talking about this in the show and tell, but it does look like the ground level on this side of the trench might actually be pushed down a little bit. So instead of losing 1.5 meters, I think they're probably sitting around maybe 3/4 of a meter is what they actually lost, based on we can kind of see where the floor ends up impacting, kind of along the speed core there on the side. And
Yeah.
you can tell that it's definitely below where that kind of rusty weld line is from the original extension. So it is it's down more relative to kind of ground level, but it's really hard to relate ground level to kind of the structure height because it can vary quite a bit. So it seems like they kind of split the difference.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I was gonna say this is sort of their propellant handling floor, and I believe that the main valve assemblies. I thought we saw them in one of those storage areas. They look like they're slightly. The main arc where the propellant leaves seems to be slightly lower than it was at Bocas. And where one of these, those they look, that sweep coming out looks slightly shorter to my eyes than I remember it, but that's the highest element that goes into that lower level.
Okay. Don't they have stuff on the ceiling though?
They do, but that's where the 2 areas that they're, because they have all the purge lines and stuff along the ceiling.
Right.
I haven't actually looked for them. I'd be surprised if they're not already being staged here because everything else is.
Now, originally, I'd kind of dismissed the idea that the floor inside the bunker would actually be below the surrounding grade. Just if you think about like water intrusion, you could end up with a flood in there with the deluge system up top. But it seems like it might actually end up being a little bit below the surrounding grade if you compare it to the where the propellant trench would come in there on the top left, Zach. Another angle would probably show it a little better, but that seems to be roughly in line with the weld line on the speed
Wait, sorry,
core
you're talking about.
on the
Hold on.
opposite side.
Can you actually see the drop down here? Right.
That's how they could have constructed it. The footing was always below. They did that at Starbase too. But you can see there's a little bit of a grade difference between where the propellant, I guess, cryo lines would come in the culvert to where the floor is. So
Right.
it does seem like they may actually have the floor a little bit lower below kind of what the surrounding grade would end up being. So they may have I would assume maybe a sump pump system in there to pull water out if need be.
Yeah, that's something I've wondered about for a while. I still haven't figured out what they will do if the fire suppression system gets triggered in there. How do you get that water out? One of the I guess interesting, at least to me, details, they did push the sheet pile walls are like a little bit further out, so they actually can get behind this. So before, at least at Starbase, they had to weld all of these wall sections from the inside because they couldn't get behind it. I'm assuming they may actually still have to do that in here, but in between the bunker. I don't know if there's space down there or not. I think there might be, but yeah, they made this wider for that purpose so they could get behind it, and that kind of affected things on this side because in order to maintain that gap, they couldn't have all of the high pressure gas lines coming through here. So on the other at Starbase Pad 2, they have all of the cryo tubes in the trench, and all of the green electrical and I don't know, there's not electrical, it's just gas. All the gas lines are running alongside it in a separate trench, basically. So here they can't do that because they want to keep this space. So they basically made the trench, the commodities trench, I think about twice as deep.
It's a bit wider as well, and you were right. They have a layer cake where the electrical conduits were below the high pressure running between the Boca.
Hold on one second. I'm just gonna pull this up so we can see it. So hard trying to figure out which month of images I need. I think it's probably June. Wow, I hit that perfectly. Pretty good at that. See if we have an overhead. Not quite, but I think there's one that was lined up. This actually does work right here. Psych. Maybe this one. Getting closer. Wow. I guess I didn't choose a good week. There's not one looking straight on it. This might be the closest right here. Yeah, you can see them right here. So basically all of those high pressure gas lines in between the two trenches, and you can see this one's nowhere near as wide, and they're double stacking, two side-by-side lines. Basically, I think you have your methane and oxygen here, then you have methane return and your
Chill
pre-press
return.
lines and all that stuff down there. Yeah, all that stuff down there. And so basically they moved all of this into one trench, which made them have to make it deeper and wider. So that was pretty interesting to see.
The I believe the pre-press actually is running with high pressure. I think it's only the purge gases that are running in the trench.
Sorry, you said that only the
At Starbase, I believe it's just the propellant and the propellant purge lines, or the vapor return, the liquid, and the purge gas. The pre-press gas, I believe,
all in
is
the other trench. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically here they're going to put all of those against this wall. So you can see all those pipe racks over there, pipe racks on this side. So quite a lot of pipes going in there. And I mean, this thing is so deep. Look at this. You can see the scissor lift down there.
It would be pretty cool to walk through this trench because you'd have it's almost looks like it's 2 stories tall in
Yeah.
most places. So yeah, you'd basically have stacks of pipes on the left and the right and just walk down it like a hallway.
Yeah.
Does it look like it has the Legionnaires breeding pit like Starbase has?
You talking about where they have all the water just stuck down there?
Yeah. Does it appears that purging pit didn't make the cut?
Are you talking about the one that should be over here?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another difference. And one of the other things was that so those expansion loops, that was kind of what we saw over there. They have 2 on this side, and they did not have one on the left side at Starbase, so they added another one over here. That's and one of those interesting details to me because I wonder if they like got halfway through constructing the one at Starbase and they're like, oh dang, we probably should have put an expansion loop here. So it seems like you can definitely see where they're applying lessons that they've learned. They also have done the trench for their water lines a bit different as well too, but you can see them installing the first 2 water lines. I think the other ones end up going right here.
Correct.
Then we have the water farm down here as well. Actually, before I go to the water farm, one of the things that they had to do with this tower, which they are currently doing with Pad A's tower, was to completely swap out all of the cryo tubing. So again, with this being a version 1 tower design, all of the cryo tubing in here was the like normal insulated tubing. And sorry, I'm trying to find an angle where the sun's shining on it the right way. I guess I had it before. I don't know why I switched away. So yeah, all of this was basically this type of tubing over here with the insulation, and now they swapped all of that out for vacuum jacketed tubing. They actually just finished, I think, probably the last few days, stripping all of these out of Pad 1's tower. So I think they're probably about 6 months ahead on this one as far as all that retrofit work. They also obviously have the QD arm on there. And I believe they probably had all of the internal stuff done before this even got out here. I'm really curious to know how they install all of this in here without like all the expansion loops that they have in there. Like, how do you fit those through?
Very carefully.
It must have been extremely annoying. It looks like you can still see all the scaffolding around the weld line. So I'm wondering if they're still working on those right now.
Before you move off this photo too, Zach, maybe show where the SQD arm is on the tower. They did add the lower set of connection points for the hinges on this tower, and so with everything else, with the mount being lower in the ground and the same tower base design as Pad 1, this is ultimately what's going to happen with the tower at Pad 1 at Starbase. We're expecting them to pull the SQD arm off because it's currently actually on the higher set of connections. So we're expecting them to pull the entire arm off. And whether they build a whole new arm or just retrofit the old one is maybe up in the air. But the arm will come off and it will get set in the lower set on the tower that they'll also have to add to the tower at Starbase.
So you think when they move up to version 4 boosters and ships that they'll move this up?
Yeah, I would say the height difference. So each truss kind of section on the tower is roughly about 5.6 meters in height. So they would move the arm up, and then if they whether the booster is exactly you know lengthened by that much, it's probably unlikely. But they will have kind of a unit to work with, so that the ship will move up by a certain amount, and then if they need to adjust the height of the ship QD plate, they should have enough kind of play in the mechanics in order to do that.
Yeah, and I did see somebody in the chat ask, so apparently they can't just add another segment to the tower. Um, uh, and I don't know, maybe Alex can correct me on this. Well, for one, these towers were already completed. Every tower except the one that's currently inside of Roberts Road was fabricated before version 4 ever got announced, really. Like, I mean, they obviously knew that they would eventually end up stretching it, but all of these were designed before that. On top of that, the structure itself, you can't just add another section on it. It changes everything with the actual load on the tower. So I think, and maybe Alex, like I said, you can correct me, pretty sure that increasing the tower could force them to have to make slightly larger columns. Just
Slightly
to support the extra weight.
potential larger. The foundation would probably be the first major upgrade that you'd have to do, because when loading goes up, I mean, granted, we're only, what's that? What do you say, Ryan? 5.5 meters per truss section?
It's about like 5
Yeah, so you're like having like
yeah.
15 onto that.
Yeah. And it gets to the point where if you're going to start doing such massive updates, you'd probably would adding two be more beneficial. But then there's you're up against, there's aspect ratios for rockets, how their lengths to diameter, essentially. Falcon's kind of on the extreme end. So how tall the potential starships could stretch to, it's kind of, there's some hard limits.
It would be far easier for them to actually move where the grab points on the ship are than modify the tower at this point.
Yeah.
And maybe just to add some other information. So with the stretch, it's about 5.6-ish meters is the truss unit. So that roughly translates to about 3 rings. So with version 4 boosters, you can kind of expect they would add about 3 rings to them in order to basically perfectly offset things, so they would be able to just move the arm up, put a version 4 booster on, put a ship on top, and everything would be unit wise and dimension wise, it would be perfect.
And
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting when they end up doing that.
And yeah, ship stretching, if it's payload, that's fairly light. So shifting down the catch and lift hardware would probably, like Ryan was saying, it's the best solution. And redesigning their entire tower, the integration tower.
I am trying to find an image of the water farm and failing.
We're looking at it.
Yeah, but I wanted one from the other side. I don't know if this works. Yeah, so I guess moving on, the water farm is probably one of the few areas that seems the most identical. I think the some of this stuff is flipped. Whoa, these things are tiny.
Stout. I think they're larger diameter.
There's no way they're that much larger. What is going on?
Square of radius.
That's interesting. Huh. Okay. I take it
And
back. I guess there is at least one thing different.
the other major one is it appears that they don't have room for the fifth large tank for the deflector side.
Oh. So they're 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And there's no room on the other side for a fifth. I guess that'll be in the way of this right here.
Yeah,
That's
There's
interesting.
that's a glaring difference.
I think that probably means something. I need to think about it, like why you would be okay with less. There is a mystery pipe that's in the ground at Starbase that could have something to do with that, like extra water supply for whatever they're
It's
going to
here.
put in the future.
It's here as
It
well.
is here?
yeah.
Okay.
It's snugged up next to his existing one in the shadows.
Yeah, man, if I would wish we got some images like a few months ago to see all the underground stuff that's now hidden from us. Like the whole network of water pipes is probably pretty crazy down here. I think it probably zigzags underneath here.
Yeah, I think.
Interesting. But other than that, everything else seems to be relatively the same number of gas generators that they're using down here. So that's pretty cool. Then, like Alex was saying, the whole underground structure that they had at Starbase doesn't seem to be here. Wow. That's a pipe rack.
Oh yeah. It's weird because that looks
that's
like
the biggest difference here in general is with all the above ground piping. Alex seems to love that. I don't like it. I like the below ground stuff just because of the risk to pad infrastructure. If you have, an anomaly on the pad or something like that, like I feel like we've learned that lesson already. So this is the one thing I don't like.
wait, taken. So
But
kind of hard
it does
to
make it really
argue
easy to
that.
figure everything out.
That's the part I
it makes it.
especially like.
Oops, wrong one. Yeah, I mean, looking at the tank farm, man, I really love the way that they've done this. Minus one thing. The one thing that bothers me, which I was going to tell Alex the other day, but I forgot. So we have methane on this side. We have 3 here currently, and I think there's room for 2 more.
2 or 3 more, yeah.
There's pads for 2 more because you each have 3 pedestals. So these are slightly larger than these are the size tanks that they have at Starbase right here. And these ones, Alex, what were you saying the extra capacity in these?
I believe these are 1,200 cubic meters, and the longer ones are 950.
Okay. So a decent increase in volume on these, which is very interesting because of just how many there are. So you have 5 methane tanks here. I believe 3 liquid nitrogen, and then the methane ball. And that's the part that annoys me, is the fact that they didn't put the methane over with the other methane.
Very true.
It's like, why? And most of this actually, so they did have a completely different farm over here in this corner right here. So they stripped out everything except this ball got stripped out, which is wild. I mean, they built an entire tank farm for 2 tank farms and destroyed both of them. That's pretty crazy, the amount of rework that has gone on both of these pads. But honestly, I mean, I think it worked out for the better. Like everything just looks so much cleaner now. The way all of this is divided. I mean, you don't have your methane being stored directly, essentially right next to your oxygen. So, you got like 2 football fields separation here. this time around, which is nice. The LOX storage is even more crazy, in my opinion. So currently they have 4 tanks, and it looks like they have room for, what was it? I think five more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so there'll be nine in total, which is ridiculous. Because they only have right now at Starbase, they currently have 5. We are expecting these to turn into locks, but right now they still have not done that yet.
2 of them have. The third one still.
These two?
Yeah, the third one it's the closest to the end is still connected directly with the return lines.
That's funny because before the show I was looking. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna check this to see if they've connected it, just so I know for sure. And I was like, no, they probably haven't. I'll just go with it. Should not have invited you on the show. Just kidding.
I just ruined it.
Sorry. Trying to get the angle I just had. It's such a massive locks farm, and even so that their pumps, I think, I think they have about the same pump capacity on both sides. Here they did do something different. This is kind of what they're doing at Massey's. Instead of having the larger LOX pumps, they're using smaller ones and kind of running 2 in parallel on each side. Still don't know what to think about that, honestly. But I think the actual pump capacity seems to be the same, but the subcooling capacity, I feel like, is much greater down here.
Yeah. Well, the ship still has 4, just like it does for the methane side. Let's say.
Isn't this ship and this is booster for methane?
Yeah, and Boca's there's 4 for the ship as well. 4 is kettle boilers, and
they have 1 of these replacing 5 of these.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to have 8 for the because I think there's 2 pads on the methane side for the kettle boilers that aren't there.
But they're also looking like they're going to at least put 2 more of these over here as well. Probably a second one over there, I guess. So that's far more cooling capacity.
Correct.
I guess my point that I was going to make was that prop load time is probably going to be like 10 minutes shorter here.
They're using the number of tanks to determine flow rate. So yeah, that's with the additional 1 or 2 LOX tanks are definitely going to get a faster flow rate.
Why does that matter?
You want to maintain the velocities that you're moving the fluid through the pipes to cut down on friction, heating, and that sort of stuff.
Specifically, the pipes, just the ones coming off of the tank.
All of them, but yeah, it's because the tanks outlets are all of sort of a set kind of size. So it's just kind of sort of like when you're stacking batteries for adding capacity. Oh, let's add another cell.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of idea. And if you look around, a lot of the supply pipes are a wee bit larger diameter here than they were at Starbase.
Yeah, they are huge. The ones that they have for the methane, I think, is right here. These are absolutely massive. So they have, so you have the methane storage over here, and you have the ball, and then you have 2 equal sized lines coming from each one. Both are large. Like, I'm pretty positive this is larger than the methane lines at Starbase. Then you have 2 coming off of it, feeding into both sets of of kettle boilers for the ship and the booster. So just wow, I feel like the rate of prop loading is just going to be ridiculous down here. But I mean, the thing that always confuses me on that is it shrinks down. The flex hoses going to the booster are not this big. So it's
No,
interesting how you. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, they do the same thing for a lot of any of the valves you're using for flow. They usually stop down the diameter of the pipe, so it just boosts lowers the pressure.
Hmm.
So the pipes are oversized for you could force more volume through it, but you're increasing heating and other things. So it's just kind of a easy cheat for a lower energy, lower heat losses, and friction losses.
I get it. Yeah. I actually did end up explaining something similar to that for the water side. Just by increasing the size of those pipes, you're reducing the velocity through them.
Exactly.
Significantly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that note, do you think we will truly see faster prop load down here? I mean, I feel like with cooling capacity alone, that's what it looks like. That's insane.
Think so.
Like they're gonna have a faster prop load than Falcon 9. Falcon 9's 45 minutes? 49?
I think so. Mr. Weber left us, but yeah. But that Falcon also has the lock subcooling adding to the mix, but they definitely have room to add that here in the future.
One of the other things I've noticed, we talked about during show and tell the other day, so all of these forced draft vaporizers.
Yep.
Did I say that right?
Yep.
So they have fans usually at Starbase. All the fans are on the bottom, so it's like pushing air up through it. Whereas these ones seem to be pulling air up through it, which is interesting.
Might be pushing. I mean, the nice thing with this, when you get all the condensate forming and the big ice block, it won't interfere with your airflow.
Right, and you're not having all that water dropping onto the fan and whatnot.
Exactly.
I don't think that really matters, right? Does it matter?
It shouldn't, but I mean, they're weather shielded, so. But they do have a lot of these caps scattered all around Starbase. And I wouldn't be surprised if they swap to these in the future once the Pad B is fully online.
Be interesting to put them on top and bottom.
Definitely. Couldn't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, man, there's so many details in here that like we can't see at Starbase because a lot of it is tucked underneath the tanks. Like they do have things underneath the tanks, mostly the high pressure gas cylinders are under all the tanks, but at Starbase there's like a whole nother invisible tank farm underneath the actual LOX tanks. Actually underneath all of them. Yeah, there's an entire farm underneath this that you can't see. And I hate that. I mean, actually, I like it, but I hate it for trying to figure stuff out. It's really convenient, and I think it's pretty cool the way they tuck that in there. But when you're actually trying to figure out what's going on, it's pretty much impossible. But I feel like you could look at this stuff closely, and then assume the same systems are at Starbase as well. Kind of explains things that you're not able to see in a way.
Exactly.
Maybe to bring up 37 here again real quick. I wonder if there's the possibility they could bring the ball tank from there over here and reuse it.
Why?
just cause. You never know.
Fits.
I
It would
mean,
probably. I can't remember if that one was rated for methane or not. I know they had to do work on this one here at 39 to get it ready for methane, but
yeah.
yeah, not sure if it's really worth it or not. But it would be interesting if they did that.
I mean, I guess I'd rather see it here than there, just because of I don't like this. But yeah, that would be interesting to see. I mean, I feel like if they do have to rework it, then they'll probably start that sooner rather than later. One of the interesting things down here as well is the what appears to be the bunker. I'm actually not 100% sure if that. I mean, if I can't tell if this is a permanent structure or not. I mean, it looks like it is, but Alex, do you think this is made of concrete?
Yeah, it was built, I believe, the same way as the super bunker
The one at
or
Maxar.
whatever. The one at the gate at D2.
Oh,
It's steel frame was concrete curtain walls.
The
Yeah.
Giga Prison.
Yeah, but
do you think this is the equivalent of
the the VFC trailer.
yeah, I don't yeah, the VFD
Yeah, like that one.
Yeah.
Because in
So do
between,
you
you
think
can.
that they're putting all of that in one structure?
It looks that way, and there's a huge number of sub outs that look like there's going to be a bunch of transformers sitting in that courtyard.
Yeah, it doesn't seem big enough for what it needs to be doing. But I guess it kind of looks like there's 4 buildings in one right here. 1,
It's
2,
definitely more spread out.
3, and 4.
So yeah, it's those large, almost loading dock size doorways. Seems like because there's also no whatever climate control for the
Cooling, yeah.
are missing. And granted, they could be doing what they were doing at Pad 1 part of the time, where they're using cryogenics to cool the coolant loops.
I mean, they do have
Oh,
liquid nitrogen is pretty far away, but
that pipeway on the lock side is fairly close.
coming over here.
Potentially, but I mean, I would probably, if they were doing that, I would expect them to have its own separate tank and feed, independent of the
Right.
rest of the farm, like the deluge has. They're separating the methane, nitrogen needs, subcooling needs from the lock side, so it would just be
Right.
weird for the.
I just had a stupid thought. I was like, what if they use the water tower in place of the 5th tank? That would be stupid. But yeah, overall, like I said, this is just really, really crazy being able to actually see all this. And I mean, they're just making so much progress down here. They're really just flying, and it really makes sense now. Honestly, I don't watch too many the Falcon launches. Like, I'm always just way too busy doing other things to be watching a launch every single day. So I hadn't even realized that they haven't been launching out of 39A. I did not know that. So are they even doing crew launches here? Or are they doing those out of 42?
They would be out of 40, yeah, because Falcon Heavy wouldn't be crew rated. So it's a good thing they put the
Crew and
crew
cargo?
on, and probably, yeah.
Interesting. You know what else is funny about this? The way remember when they had that huge LOX tank?
Yeah.
It
Never
was
been
right here.
used. Yeah, it was in line with the tower and 39, I think.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad they got rid of that though. I mean, I guess building your own storage tank, like they shouldn't have even done it in the first place. But I mean, it was already completed.
I I think that one was contracted out from Cryo Spain, who was one of the largest tank manufacturers.
Right.
I think they learned
So
their
there's a few
lesson.
things missing from here, right, Alex? So there's what facilities do they still need to add here? So they don't need an ASU, right? Because
They're putting one in.
there's here. I thought that
Yeah.
I know they're doing it at 37. I didn't know they needed one here.
The methane liquefaction, it should be right around there where your hand is, at least on the diagram. And on the opposite side, where they're staging by the megapacks on the other side of the pad.
That was actually one thing I was going to show earlier that I forgot about.
There's so much to see. Yeah, in that area, on some of the initial submittals, they had an ASU going here as well.
Where is it?
Megapacks are just to the right of. I forget how massive this. There's the RP1. Yeah, they're right.
Here they are. Okay, I gotta get up to the left a little bit. Maybe this one? Cool.
Yeah.
So you're saying the ASU should be over here?
Yeah, that's
something like
that's what one of their earlier submittals had, whether or not it's still holding.
Yeah, and on the note of those megapacks, looks like they're going to have 32 of these things over here, so that's pretty wild. I feel like that's almost enough to do a full prop load off battery power.
Yeah, it's probably, if not, it's very close.
But why? Like, why? Like, you wouldn't do that, though. The moment you lose power, you're not going to just... And, like, okay, I could think of one use case where you absolutely, like, maybe we're planning for the future. And, you know, if you have a asteroid coming in and under all circumstances, you absolutely have to launch at this specific time, no matter what happens, then, you know, having enough battery pack, being able to actually run your tank farm off of the battery for a launch, I guess would probably be ideal in that situation. But I can't think of any other reason why.
The only other thing that I could suggest that it would be for is to kind of clean up the electricity a little bit. Kind of like what they do over at Tesla in Austin. They actually are in the process of adding about another 70 or 80 to bring it up to over 200 megapacks over there. And that's what they use it for over there, is to clean up the energy going into Cortex 1 and Cortex 2. So maybe it might be for that.
For data centers, normally, at least nowadays, you'll do your UPS, your backup power sometimes as a grid, and you'll use microturbines to power it. And it sounds like Tesla's going the opposite. For this, I believe it's just for load shifting for the SU and contracting with renewables. They don't generally show up when you generally need them. Like in California during the summer, wholesale power, you have to pay the grid operators if you're generating. So with load Tesla packs, you can store up to cheap power and then use it.
Right.
And then
I saw in the chat, Niall said that the ASU is supposed to go where the pond is. I'm assuming the big one.
Yeah, it'll be.
They have to keep that pond.
They might be restructured. They might be putting in another one because every time they're doing these major gradings, they redo their drainage plans.
Right.
Uh,
Do you guys think they will eventually get rid of this
don't think,
altogether? And just
I
is
hope they
Falcon Heavy
don't.
the only thing keeping us here?
Yeah. And I think most of Falcon, at least for the heavy, is going to switch to Vandy for the military, for Space Force.
Yeah,
So
like they're kind of the only people really have payloads for it, right?
yeah, and the ones they need it for are sun synchronous, and I could imagine them doglegging Falcon Heavy along Florida, right off down Florida's coast. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I just wonder if we'll end up seeing this mirrored eventually across
Yeah.
here. Hold on, let me see if I can try and get a full view of that. I mean, there's kind of enough space for it. I mean, if they could fit it at Starbase, like you could fit. Well, you probably need another tank farm, right?
Well, look at this one. They could have
Well, yeah, okay, that was another question I was going to ask you. Just the sheer volume of propellant. Do you need 2 tank farms?
No, it's just the pumps.
This is like 3 launches, right?
Yeah. And it's the same thing they're going to be doing at Starbase. The bulk commodities are going to just share those tanks, but the pump infrastructure and subcooling is going to be independent.
Right. I guess three launches worth of kind of makes sense because let's say you have a launch on one pad, static fire on the next one, followed by another launch a few days later. Like, I guess having 3 launches worth of material kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it's the
Kind of.
yeah, because the ASU is sized for the expected number of launches, because you really wouldn't store it for ramping and them up and lowering. If you're going for efficiency, you have to configure them a bit different. So generally, you're sizing them for maximum output and dealing accordingly.
Do you think part of this massive amount of storage could be related to keeping that ASU running? Like they'll maybe just like keep these half filled at all times so that there's always room.
You'll just evaporate it. Just evaporate excess, usually.
Oh.
Because, I mean, these tanks, without being popped off, probably a month before they'll evaporate away on their own. I'd have to do the math around 1% or more a day.
Another question. Off the top of your head, how long do you think it would take for ASU to fill 9 of these tanks?
Depending on, you could get one that would fill it daily. It just depends on, they'll size it for that, whatever their expected cadence capacity from the site. So if it's going to be 3,
I guess the reason I asked that is because it seems like unnecessary to have this much if you have an ASU on site. Seems like overkill.
I think they have to have enough or when they scrub, right? So that tanking and detanking, you have an amount of loss. So you're sizing everything. You'll sort of do your maths and go, okay, if we're launching this many in your dates, you'll model it with potential weather delay, vehicle delays, and because you don't want, if you're to say your next launch window opens in 12 hours, you don't want to have to kick it to the next day if you can just store that added capacity, even if you don't need it.
Right.
all the time. And this is where economics and engineering and their
I wonder
internal.
what the other launch providers down there think when they see all this equipment rolling by, just like tank after tank. They're just like, Jesus, like this one tank is bigger than our entire tank farm.
It's
You have no
this
idea.
is why fully reusable it is air quotes impossible. Just this level
Why they
of
thought it was.
it's this level of infrastructure to do it is just because I mean, if you look at it, a fully expendable Falcon 9 is how close to the similar performance of a Falcon Heavy, and even that's probably most. If you're making Falcon fully expendable, your dry mass you'd probably shave off. I don't know, probably low teens maybe of material. So yeah, it's
Interesting.
and having the economics to fuel something like this, because again, without reusability, Starlink wouldn't exist, but without Starlink, Super Heavy wouldn't exist.
Somebody just said SpaceX will end up with 90% of all the launch pads in Florida. There are a ton that are unoccupied. I honestly did not realize how many aren't in use until I looked it up a few months ago. But yeah, there are. I mean, theoretically, they could put a bunch more down here. I feel like it would make more sense for them overall to space them out across different countries, ideally, instead of. I mean, do you think they can do all of their Mars plans? I mean, they want to do point to point. That's, I think, a higher priority than most people realize for them.
Yeah,
I feel like point to point probably has to happen within the next 4 years. That's probably like their plan, if I had to guess.
spread ships are going to be a very interesting, and the what would it be, the 9-engine ships? Because point to point, the issue, I mean, it's almost like a single stage orbit, since you're just yeeting it on a ballistic trajectory. But currently, the ship is with its 1-to-1 or barely 1-to-1 thrust to weight. You're not going to do point to point width. So, and also what reentry profile you're going to do for point to
Wait,
point.
why are you saying you wouldn't be able to do it? I feel like you could do it with the ship right now.
How much fuel are versus acceleration? Like, what's your pad thrust? I thought at stage set you're barely at 1-to-1.
Well, what I'm saying is the current V3 ship or V2 ship could have done point to point in Australia.
Unless you're sitting at above 1-to-1, you're just going to sit on the pad spewing flames. What's the wet mass versus thrust, and I'll tell you when point to point is going to be would be viable per unit of fuel to yeet at that distance.
That's a bit confusing to me. Not gonna lie. But yeah, sorry, we've been kind of sticking on this topic for a while. Let's see. Do we have any questions from the audience?
We do, and we have one little bit of support that came in also from our longtime supporter and member, Crane Man. Says, "Hi guys, great show and awesome photos. Please go and do this on a regular basis." This is his donation for the Starbase and for Florida flights, and he gave $100 through PayPal. So, big thanks for that one. Now, as far as questions go, he did also send in a question asking, will Pad A's SQD arm be manufactured at Florida or Sanchez, do you think?
Mm, Well, it depends on if they rebuild it or if they just modify the existing one. I kind of feel like modification makes the most sense. I mean, structurally, it's a little bit different, so maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they will just build another one. It might actually be faster to just build another one. Um,
I know recently I identified, I think, one new tube inside the new, I guess, SQD arm truss structure, but for the most part, it's relatively the same. So I imagine that they'll probably retrofit the one from Pad 1.
They retrofitted this one on 39A, I believe. Yeah, it's the main change is where the actuator I thought hooks into it.
Nice. And the next question's from Outdoors Man. This one's specifically for Ryan Hansen. Why do you want your flame trench facing the ocean versus something like Pad 2 at Starbase?
Um, well, technically, you kind of want to add a little bit of an angle, but I suppose there's a couple of things to think about with that. You kind of want to minimize, I guess, where your energy is going, so that might play a little bit of a role into like which direction the flame trench opening is, especially for like surrounding infrastructure. So if tank farms on one side, you may or may not want to have the opening facing toward that. But also there is a little bit of an advantage in the orientation for, I guess, when boosters come back to land. There may be a specific orientation that they want for when the boosters come in, and then they kind of do their braking burn, and then translate toward the tower. It's kind of a little interesting in some cases. If you think about it, it might make sense to have a little bit of like a 45-degree angle. This image is actually kind of a good one that Zack has up to show this, but in relation to where the water is kind of higher off the frame, there is a little bit of like an angle, like a 45-degree angle between, where the booster would come back, assuming it's launching, straight out over the water. It is at a little bit of a 45-degree angle. So when the booster comes back, it would kind of have to slow down and then kind of turn and then come toward the tower, since they will want to catch over the top of the middle of the launch mount. So there's a lot of considerations they probably have for the orientation of the various infrastructure. Some of it, is better in some of those cases. So it's kind of a balance of different trade-offs.
Perfect answer. All right, and the next one is from Kit. They ask, has the Starship Launch Complex at KSC got an official designation yet? I remember seeing rumors that it might become 39X. Is there anything official?
I mean, the whole thing is 39A. I guess you're talking about how they will differentiate on paper these two, like 39A1 and A2 type thing. I don't know. I haven't seen anything related to that.
All right. And the next one's from Brian Aries. Do you think they will ever build a payload integration tower just to load Starship?
I think at some
I
point,
What do you guys think?
if they start launching commercial satellites versus, because right now they're just launching Starlinks, they have a solution for Starlink, but eventually they will need some sort of a payload processing facility. And I imagine that might be, I don't think it would necessarily be at the pad. It might be, but if they want to reach the cadence that they're talking about you might not want to have that happen at the pad if you've got maybe tankers that need to launch, but you've got people in a payload, processing facility, near the pad. That wouldn't allow the tankers to launch. So it seems like they would probably build something near the pad, but outside of the safety range, I guess. And they would probably, it'd be a vertical building. The Starship would roll in. They'd have a payload there. They'd be able to put it in the payload bay and shut the doors on the Starship and roll it out to the pad and stack it.
Nice. And then we have another one from Sergeant Snipey just came in. Is there any way that the 39A main pad could be retrofit for Starship to launch from? And I'm sure they're talking about the Falcon 9 pad.
No, I don't think you would want to do that. You can make a two-way trench on this. I think it is a two-way trench still. I think they just have a bunch of stuff down there and it's partially covered. Did they completely seal it up? Let's see. Yeah, it's still there. It's a better one. Yeah, you can see it right there. It's still this trench is still there. So theoretically you could, but I don't think they would do that.
You would have to
It
do
would just
so
it would
much
be a
to modify it to
yeah.
retrofit it. It really wouldn't be worth it. They would do a clean sheet design, I think, and um, I think eventually, if Falcon 9, moves elsewhere, that they may just take this area down. It may not, exist in the future, which would be kind of sad because it is historical. But I don't think that they would, put Starship on top of the existing infrastructure there. They'd build a new one off to the side.
Yeah, I totally agree on that one. And the other two that we have left are slightly speculative. But one goes back to the Gigabay at Roberts Road, asking, could SpaceX be planning to rush finish a few KSC Gigabay bays for processing the Boca hardware?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're going to do. They'll have probably not the manufacturing capabilities in Florida for a little bit, but they'll at least have the processing capabilities. I imagine that after they transport vehicles here, there's probably going to be some additional tile work that'll need done, potentially from tiles not existing on the ships. When they're transported, certainly they would have more than no tiles, but that there's probably going to be tiles that have to maybe replaced or add on after the fact. There's different jig structures that hint might be talked about tomorrow, but could be playing a role in how they would need to post process a vehicle after moving it here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I clearly missed something in the Starbase Flyover. Let me just.
Our last question is from Nalbandian. He asked, could you guys give an educated guess on operational readiness timelines of each of the launch towers at KSC?
37, probably 2 years. They have so much to do there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Again, Alex?
2 years sounds like a good middle of the road guess.
The other one, I feel like they could be like 9 months out.
Yeah, I feel like 39A could probably, be capable of testing maybe a launch toward the end of this year, but whether or not they actually have like the vehicles in place to do a launch is another question.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great big shout out to Bama in Italy that just sent 20 gifted memberships. Absolutely huge and absolutely appreciated. Thank you so much. And that's it for questions and donations.
Awesome. Well, I think we're 2.5 hours in, so I may wrap it up here. We are going to be doing another show tomorrow. I do want to once again give a massive shout out to Event Dudes for getting out there and literally capturing the best images I've ever seen of 39A, well, out of all of these sites, actually. So yeah, huge shout out. And like I said, hopefully we'll be able to make this happen again. And like I said, we appreciate all of your guys' support too. It makes all of this possible. Although I do think Event Dude's definitely paid for this flyover himself. So that's really awesome that he was willing to do that for us to be able to share this with all of y'all today. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for being on the show. I think we'll see all of y'all tomorrow at the normal time for the Starbase episode. So yeah, thanks to Ryan and Alex for helping me out today, and Matt for handling all the questions. And I'll pass this off to Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show today. Thanks everybody for sticking around and listening to this kind of unique episode. It'll be really cool if we can get something on a somewhat regular basis for covering KSC. There's a lot of cool stuff as Starship is transitioning into the Florida area. So it'll be really cool to kind of see how that develops over the future. So pass it over to Alex now.
Thank you, Ryan and Zach. And we need to get both of these back together on Starbase Flyover soon, please. And yeah, this 39A is absolutely spectacular. We need to do this again. And Matt?
You are right on that. We absolutely do, and we will definitely work on it. Big thank you to everybody for all your comments, questions, donations, and everything today. And we look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Most engines cut off. Hot staging confirmed. Love you. Bye.